Today is Sunday, January the 13th, 2019. Hello, and welcome to Weekly Astrology Notes for the week of January 14th through the 20th, 2019. Just like to start off by saying thank you to all my subscribers. I just reached a new milestone, 700 subscribers and growing. So a big thanks to all my subscribers and a warm welcome to all the new ones. Welcome to a small but growing community of souls interested in the synchronicity of the planets and events as they unfold in society and in our lives. You know, I love to get comments and questions from viewers, love to get the discussion going, and I usually reply to every comment. Okay, so for this report, it covers the second quarter of the new moon, which was in Capricorn, on January the 5th. Highlights for this week, we've got Mercury sextile Neptune on Monday. And then on Wednesday, moon trine sun, and the moon is void, of course, from mid-morning until the early evening. On Friday, the 18th, really big day, 3 planetary aspects. Venus trine Mars in the morning, Mercury conjunct Pluto at noon, and Sun square Uranus in the early evening. Should be an exciting Friday night. And then on Sunday, the 20th, the Sun enters Aquarius, and we have the aspect Venus square Neptune, along with the full moon in Leo in the evening. Okay, so let's get started with Monday the 14th. We start out early in the morning with a planetary aspect, Mercury sextile Neptune. This will be 14 degrees of Capricorn to 14 degrees of Pisces. Transcendental thinking, that's the 4th quadrant. So we're not centered in our personal needs, more thinking outside of ourselves, and more in tune with the subtle vibrations around us, more concerned with impressions, and able to tune into the thoughts and feelings of others. And this morning we're reflective, with extraordinary perceptions, I think, because Mercury in Capricorn has an elite and a refined sense, and that sextile to Neptune makes us sensitive and compassionate. But we're reserved and disciplined, and this kind of thinking leads to a greater awareness of the non-material side of life, something that we're really needing to do these days now that we're coming up to the Saturn sextile Neptune. Again, it's Capricorn to Pisces, and we really are bringing in a greater awareness of the spiritual side of life, and this aspect really adds to that. So it gives us increased sensitivity, a very stimulating imagination, possibly diversions into fantasy land, but we're quiet and reflective. And we're more interested in philanthropic efforts, helping others who genuinely deserve it. Interactions with others this morning are kind of slow because everyone is sensitive and reserved, and no one wants to be approached forcefully. Basically, we're interested in matters important to the soul, not the mundane business that Capricorn is usually focused on. So it's a really good aspect for writing poetry or music. Okay, also in the morning on Monday, we've got moon conjunct Uranus. So Uranus stimulates the mind and makes us a bit restless and ambitious, looking for change. Moods change without notice. Usually comes with a surprise. It's really not a time for any precise work. Uranus, coupled with the moon like that, can make us kind of sloppy. And you want to avoid acting on impulse or jumping to conclusions. And then we have a short void, of course, until the moon enters Taurus in the mid-morning. So we're more steadfast for the next couple of days, not interested in change, more easygoing and cautious, more concerned with our possessions and our personal values. The moon is exalted in Taurus, where the fixed earth energy enables the moon to build long-lasting bonds. That's why it enjoys it so much. And to relax and enjoy the simple pleasures in life. And it's always a good time to get a massage. So I'll talk about that when we get to the moon sextile Neptune. But starting with the moon trine Saturn in the mid-morning, so benefits come from enjoying your duties and responsibilities, especially when there's opportunities for financial gain when the moon is in Taurus like that. So we're very practical and down to earth in the morning, and then in the early afternoon we've got the sextile to Neptune. So we're very relaxed, sensual, and sensitive. We have a spiritual connection to the earth and our physical body because of that earth energy from Taurus, mixed with that spiritual energy of Pisces. Everything physical seems more interesting. We're more intuitive and compassionate, reflective and passive, and it's the best time to get a massage each month while Neptune is in Pisces. This moon sextile in Taurus sextile is really great, enables you to open up to others and feel that wonderful energy of the massage. And then later in the afternoon, it's really nice as well, moon trine Mercury. Inhibitions subside and the mind works better now. Lots of communication, writing, activity, and movement. It's a good time for business, especially in earth signs, so there should be opportunities for financial gains. Okay, moving along to Wednesday, January the 16th. We start in the middle of the night with the moon trine Pluto. Benefits come from participating in the community, helping others, because we need to merge with others. Our energy needs to be part of the collective, and we need to feel that commitment to society. So it's a great time for business. Again, more opportunities for material gains, especially with the moon in Taurus, trining all these planets in Capricorn. Lots of energy and stamina, able to get a lot accomplished. And the Pluto always gives us a strong burst of energy that you really need to put to use right away and just keep moving. You don't want to stagnate. And then we've got the always wonderful moon trine sun. First trine of the month, so inhibitions subside, creative energy flows. So this will be mid-morning. You always want to take note of these moon trine sun aspects because we're always in a good mood. There are opportunities for material success, so you really want to reach for them, especially with the moon trine Pluto. We've got so many of them. The Capricorn, it's really good energy. Excellent time for business meetings, sales, negotiations, equipment purchases, things like that, expenditures to enable you more growth because it's in Taurus. You're willing to spend some of your money basically for your own professional growth, for something that you'll gain in the future. So it's a good time to expand your business. And then we've got a long void of course. This one will be from the mid-morning until the early evening when the moon enters Gemini. So we're more mentally active for the next couple of days. Lots of communication, short trips around town, catching up with others, better able to solve mental problems and doing tasks with your hands, like doing two things at once. That's Gemini, the twins. Moving on to Thursday, January the 17th. We start late in the morning, just before noon. We've got moon opposition Venus. Heightened sensitivity to the feelings of others makes interactions more difficult, but meetings bring awareness of other people's viewpoints because it's Gemini to Sagittarius. And then in the early afternoon, moon sextile Mars. That Mars energy has us directing ourselves in a confident and courageous manner. You really need to feel like you're directing your own life at this time. Inhibitions subside and you just have more physical energy. And as well, you can work alone or with others now. So it's a very productive aspect, I've noticed. And then in the early evening, we're going to get moon square Neptune. Emotions are clouded by uncertainty, hypersensitive to the environment and what others say. So be gentle with yourself and others now. Impressions mean more than words. Great aspect for making art, but not a good time to make decisions. We're kind of delusional now. Stronger connection to animals and to nature, even nature spirits, and we're more psychic and able to feel the vibrations around you. Good time for meditation. As well, we've got the moon opposition Jupiter. Expands the mind quite a bit. Should also help with meditation. It also makes us kind of loud and extravagant. Kind of hard to contain our energy. The mouth opens wide and sometimes we say and eat too much because it's in Gemini. It brings confrontations between opposing viewpoints, like I was saying, Gemini to Sagittarius. So it could start some arguments. Emotions get mixed with perspectives, makes for a lot of display and virtue signaling, and can push others away with overbearing behavior. And we always have that poor financial judgment on the tough Moon-Jupiter aspects. Okay, moving along to Friday, the 18th. We've got a really big day with 3 planetary aspects. So we start in the morning with Venus trine Mars, Sagittarius to Aries. This is a combination we should get more familiar with, since we're going to be getting a lot of it these days with Mars and Uranus in Aries, getting trines from planets in Sagittarius. It's a very important one. It's about putting your big plans into action. So with this one, we got a lot of physical energy, and as well as good emotional health and psychological well-being. You're just more energetic this morning. Good time for a workout. As well, there's harmony between the sexes. It's romantic, desire to spend time with your partner and to pursue romantic interests. Business negotiations are aggressive but profitable. Both sides want to feel like the other has gained and want it to be a win-win situation. That's that Sagittarius energy, being very principled in that way. We're basically open to opportunity today, a natural receptivity to growth. It's Venus and Sag, and it leads us to explore new aspects of ourselves and our identity. It's Mars and Aries. So we're very curious, want to learn and try new things. We're not stuck in the past. We're able to express the better side of ourselves. In fire signs, Sagittarius to Aries, that creative energy flows naturally from our available potential in Sagittarius. And whatever it is that you've been thinking about doing, maybe saving up for, and now is the moment when you want to move forward and release that creative energy. All your big plans put into action. Desire to run, explore. We're kind of headstrong, but working well with others. It's a great aspect for social occasions and great for business. And on a Friday, many folks may not feel like attending to duty and responsibility today, except the other aspect we're having next kind of says the opposite. And that's Mercury conjunct Pluto in Capricorn. So that one will be at 21 degrees of Capricorn. So that one makes us mentally focused. It's a little bit like the Sun conjunct Pluto from last week. It can give us a lot of energy, powerful burst of energy. We're going to feel more powerful, competent, and determined, more well put together, cohesive, and able to understand the deep inner workings of the mind, as well as have a deeper understanding of others, able to focus and concentrate, even to the point of being obsessed with a particular issue. But the previous aspect, that Venus trine, maybe it'll kind of alleviate that a little bit. That continuous creative energy with that aspect should make these two aspects work together to make us accomplish a lot. We're methodical. Should be able to complete any task you set your mind to. We're traditional and cautious and reserved. May not feel the need to speak at all. And that's because Mercury in Capricorn doesn't talk that much. It's kind of reserved. And the same is true for Mercury conjunct Pluto. So put them together, and you may not feel like you need to speak at all. Just put your ideas into action, or prefer to speak only when necessary to get the most powerful effect, because we have a far more greater awareness of the power of our words, and we're able to keep secrets as well. And this one has us able to overcome mental limitations. That Pluto energy, it just drives through and burns out any impurities, rise above psychological problems, and keep them contained so as to not slow you down. Very good aspect for meditation. And just like the Sun conjunct Pluto from last week, we're focusing on our career, looking for ways to get ahead. So this is another aspect that goes well with the new moon in Capricorn. Excellent aspect to discuss business matters or any important matters. Okay, so that's it for the second planetary aspect, and now for Sun square Uranus. So this one will be 28 degrees of Capricorn to 28 degrees of Aries. A crisis to express individuality. It's going to be in a direct, rather cardinal way because of its cardinal signs, which may cause conflict with your obligations. Aspect can bring unpleasant surprises, unusual, erratic, and aggressive behavior, sudden disputes. Not a time to challenge others and may be surprised at their response. Even shy folks are more likely to stand up for themselves, display more aggression, and just do something surprising. The mind really needs stimulation today. The usual, the normal, the routine, it just simply will not suffice. You need to do something different and interesting while still keeping your promise to the rest of the world and not losing your cool or blowing your reputation, because that's what happens with Uranus square planet in Capricorn sometimes. Uranus gets too rebellious and the Capricorn gets sacrificed. So it needs to be handled with maturity. And Aries to Capricorn, that's another one we've been focusing on a lot lately. Self-determination versus self-discipline. You know, it's an executive decision. You got to figure out which is most important. Now, self-discipline usually comes down to career and obligations, whereas self-determination is just desire to do whatever you want. And it usually comes off as a desire to do something that's contrary to your usual pattern, something that could be too upsetting. Duties and responsibilities seem a little more difficult to endure. Folks are edgy and just generally dissatisfied, kind of judgmental. Not a good aspect for social interactions, but it may produce a lot more of them anyway, because we have that crisis to interact with more people and to get new information. And of course, because it's a Friday night, so it probably will produce a lot of interactions. The need to do something different will get folks out of the house this evening. Could cause conflicts and disruptions at work, breakdowns and malfunctions. Existing tensions erupt. It could manifest from something outside yourself. It brings out that impersonal utilitarian behavior towards others, so you don't want to take anything personally. Very idealistic thinking, so you want to avoid jumping to conclusions. Although, even though you're not thinking clearly, you probably do have more intelligence in general, more awareness of things that you weren't aware of before, because Uranus connects us with these transpersonal forces. But you always want to wait a little bit until after it's over and see if those amazing idealistic ideas were really worth something. So that's why you kind of want to avoid jumping to conclusions and making hasty decisions with Uranus, although it is very enlightening. We're very ambitious and we're not as aware of our limitations. So again, avoid hasty decisions or any idea that could lead to dangerous activities, because we're a little more accident prone. And this aspect, just like Venus trine Mars, has us wanting to avoid responsibilities. And I'm thinking that the Mercury conjunct Pluto aspect may manifest as unwillingness to listen to others if you have hard concurrent transits to that aspect. So you might want to check to see how that is going to manifest for you. Overall, it could be a pretty amazing Friday evening, exciting and stimulating. Could produce a lot of aggressive behavior and some foolish drinking. That again is the Aries to Capricorn square. It tends to bring out the foolish drinking sometimes. But ultimately, I insist it's very productive because it forces you to confront your own need to evolve. Asks you serious questions about your direction in life. Is the need for security stifling your evolution? Because that's the kind of question where Uranus squares Capricorn, which is very traditional. And Uranus comes along and says, excuse me, are you too traditional? Is your life not stimulating enough? So in that way, it really helps us break out of stagnant patterns. And like I said, it takes some maturity to handle all of this energy productively because we got so many aspects today. But overall, I would say a really dynamic set of aspects that may produce some surprising results for everyone. As always, check your chart, see what concurrent transits you're getting. So, and just a little bit more stimulation for Friday evening, you've got the moon sextile Uranus in the early evening. Benefits come from stimulating mental activity, so the mind is active, more intelligent, more aware of your surroundings, or very curious, more aware of what other people are thinking. Makes for interesting and lively conversations. And then we've got a short void, of course, until the moon enters Cancer, and still in the middle of the evening, so we're more passive, sensitive, and in need of nurturing for the next couple of days. More loving and sentimental. Good time to spend at home where you feel comfortable and can devote time to your emotional bonds. Desire to crawl into your shell and kind of let your guard down. Emotions are more important than intellect now, and because we're all more vulnerable, be gentle with yourself and others. As well, we tend to eat more during moon in Cancer. Moving along to Saturday, January the 19th. Start with a bit more energy in the morning with Moon square Mars. Also a bit more restless and irritable. Aggressive and poor digestion happens with these tough Mars aspects. Impulsive, it's not a good time to make important decisions. The challenge is to release the energy in a non-destructive way, and benefits come from not discouraging yourself. Because, with the moon in Cancer, we're very sensitive, and sometimes with that Mars energy, we wind up turning it on ourselves. So you don't want to discourage yourself, and don't let others discourage you. As well, beware of absorbing other people's anger. It's a strong burst of energy. I find it's very productive. You just have to be conscious of it. And then in the afternoon, late afternoon, I should say, probably the low point of our emotional energy each month comes at the moon opposition Saturn. It's a time of emotional restriction and oppression as insecurities seem to hold us back. So take nothing seriously now. If someone else is, not feeling well, don't take it seriously. Don't let your emotional security depend on the security or emotional security of others at this time. That's a good way to avoid falling into depression. And benefits come from staying in the present moment, and don't worry about the future. Eat a nice warm meal. It gets better a little later in the evening with the moon trine Neptune. We're very sensitive and considerate and desire to share feelings in those water signs. Cancer to Pisces. We're interested in activities that enable you to share your feelings with others. Expressions of humanitarian qualities. Something that unifies people towards a common understanding. And it should help us get our appetite back. Okay, moving along to Sunday, January the 20th. And Sun enters Aquarius just after midnight. So happy birthday out there to all those Aquarians. Capricorn gives us a strong character to guide us through the winter. And Aquarius gives us the close friends and associates we need to sustain us as well. Self-discipline and dependability in Capricorn leads to strong bonds with the group in Aquarius. Enlightened understanding amongst equals, realizing the intrinsic value in every individual, and that if we are to be strong individually, then we must be strong as a group. Nowadays, Uranus rules Aquarius, but in the past it was Saturn. Both Capricorn and Aquarius live and die by integrity. And, a lot of people still feel that Saturn is just as much a ruler of Aquarius. So, this month we seek personal freedom through group participation with like-minded individuals, developing a more progressive outlook on life. But I still want to emphasize that there is a career orientation to that, because really when you get into your career, you really are interacting amongst equals more than anything else. So there's a lot of Uranian activity in your career as well. So just wanted to add that in there. And we've got a couple more tough moon aspects happening on Sunday in the morning, starting with the moon opposition Pluto. So we are very sensitive, possessive, and easily offended. Don't take rejection easily. Social interactions are challenging at this time. Strong burst of energy. You really got to know how to put it to use. Don't stay still. You just have to have your own passion, because it brings a lot of passion, but it also brings obsessions with an issue, sudden urges. But it forces you to deal with your emotions honestly. You're able to isolate yourself and analyze an issue and make those internal corrections, because with Pluto, we're able to dig deep and we're thinking deeply. Sometimes that makes us paranoid, but if we're focused properly, it really enables us to make our own internal corrections and avoid the emotional entanglements of others. Rise above them, build our own careful barrier. And the moon opposition Mercury, again, Cancer to Capricorn. So in this case, emotions flow unabated into our communications, because that opposition, the energy flows back and forth. So energy from the moon flows right through our mouth, our speech, our mannerisms, and people have something to say. It's from their moon, so it's very important. And in our interactions, we're looking for reassurances from others. Maybe a friend or an advisor who can help you through feelings of doubt, a shoulder to lean on. So folks are reserved, cautious, not willing to expose their true feelings. Unless, of course, that person can be trusted. So it's generally not a good time for social interactions. So that's two kind of tough moon aspects on Sunday morning. And then in the early evening, we got moon square Uranus. So intelligent, yet stubborn and sensitive. It's a challenging combination, distracted by anything that stimulates the mind. It's not a good time for social interactions or to make important decisions. Emotions are mixed with the intellect, so we're prone to error, jump to wrong conclusions. Benefits come from liberating yourself from a stagnant situation to a greater awareness. So use that stimulation to break out of something that isn't working for you. Find something to positively stimulate your mind. And then we've got a short void, of course, until the moon enters Leo. So we're more playful and creative for the next couple of days. Leo rules romance and recreation, and we gain benefits through those activities now. Time to spend teaching your children and attending to your hobbies. And then in the evening on Sunday, the very dreamy Venus square Neptune. This will be 14 degrees of Sagittarius to 14 degrees of Pisces. Ah yes, that old Sagittarius to Pisces square. Yet another one, giving us a lot of expansion. This one makes us very sensitive. We're receptive to the subtle vibrations around us. We're more psychic. And you can easily absorb energy from the environment. The general feeling of disappointment with this aspect is not so much in these signs, because Sagittarius is rather positive, and Neptune and Pisces, well, they're very compassionate and forgiving. So there's in fact, it can be rather enjoyable if you allow yourself to let go and don't take it so seriously. There is a desire for romance and escape into fantasy. It can be much like the Jupiter square Neptune, in that it brings an expansion of awareness. We're feeling very gregarious and compassionate and prefer to pass the time doing little, at least nothing strenuous, because you definitely don't feel like you have much energy with this aspect. Not in a serious mood in any way. Very idealistic and forgiving, not interested in any details or work, and we're also easily deluded. It's not a time to make commitments or sign contracts. Rather, it inspires artistic appreciation, desire for beautiful music and artistic people. A good time to spend in nature with beautiful surroundings, where you can feel connected to everything, including the animals and the nature spirits. It's a good time to get a massage. Again, it's that Venus, that sensual energy, mixed in with that spiritual energy of Pisces. It's wonderful. It's also a great time to work with crystals and healing stones. The sensual energy of Venus mixed with Neptune enables us to feel the spiritual, the material world beyond what our five physical senses can tell us. So nothing seems purely mundane at this time. It can be very special, and you can be very sensitive. So you want to put yourself in a nice, safe, secure location, kind of secluded maybe, and to experience some of the very subtle and amazing vibrations that you can feel under this aspect. Don't be frightened that it's a square. It's a very expansive one. And there's always something more when it's that square to Neptune. Okay, and as we move into the evening, we move into the full moon. And this will be Sunday evening, a little after 9 o'clock, the full moon at 0 degrees 52 minutes of Leo. So we're into Leo now. Extreme highs and lows as we are riding on the energy that we have built up so far over the last 2 weeks. We're more intense encounters with others. We're more prideful. We're looking for recognition. We're more attracted to our partner or potential partners. In general, there's more social activities and just a lot more intense encounters, as well as more domestic disputes and more crime, because those subconscious energies rise to the surface and they can wreak havoc sometimes. The opposition from Leo to Aquarius is about finding partners for our creative endeavors. Creativity, Leo, needs partnership and wants to find people who do the same thing, and together you do something that's greater. Do something bigger than the sum of the parts. Sun opposition its ruling sign of Leo gives us the other side of the picture. You know, Leo says, I am the ruler, or I am king or queen. While Aquarius says, excuse me, but we're all equal. So we're all rulers. We're all kings or queens. So you get to see somebody else's opposite viewpoint of what you think you are. And that can be rather confrontational. But at the same time, it really helps to see the other side of the picture. Personal creative efforts must not be at odds with the greater goals of the group. And that's what you need to learn with the Sun Aquarius opposition, is that your creative efforts, as wonderful as they are, still need to be able to be cohesive with all the other members in the group. So you need to strike a balance, and that's what the opposition does. It gives you that balance between what you want and what your contribution to the greater needs of the group is. So a compromise is at hand. And if you can't find an equitable balance, then your own creative efforts are going to suffer. They're not going to get out there in the world. So it's an important opposition to get a hold of. And with this one, Sun to Leo, I think it makes it even stronger. So considering where we started at the new moon in Capricorn, looking for career success, this full moon tells us that you meet others who want the same thing as you. Basically, you see your creative reflection in the water. And Sun opposition Leo, okay? And therefore, you need to find a way to work together, not be headstrong, but be willing to strike a fair balance. And if you do, there's a great reward because it becomes a win-win situation. So today we merge our creative efforts with the group or associates and strive to be successful in association with others. Or at least that's the quality of the interactions that we get, because we're trying to put our creative efforts out there so we see that reflection from our associates. And this full moon is kind of special because we get a lunar eclipse, and it's going to be visible over North and South America only. And it also coincides with a supermoon, which just means It coincides with the closest distance that the moon reaches to the Earth, roughly speaking, in its elliptical orb. So a supermoon looks a little bit bigger. So a supermoon gets an eclipse over the USA in the midst of this very tumultuous month. Now that's something to think about because it's coming over just North and South America. So astrologically, the interpretation of the total lunar eclipse is that since the moon is being blocked out by the Earth, it represents the energy of the moon, which is subconscious fears and insecurities and desires, are cleared away by the Earth, swept aside so you can start fresh. Okay, there's a renewal, a refreshing moment of the lunar energies. They're wiped away. It's an opportunity to clean up bad habits, destructive emotional patterns. For the USA, which is a Cancer nation, it looks really good, I would say. At least for those of us who are patriots, hoping for a big sweeping away of things that need to get swept away. And not only does it indicate that the USA can do that, sweep away some of its inner demons, but since the world elite like to use astrology and like to time major events to eclipses, I still think that even though astrologically we can't read too much into that, just knowing that the way these people, the elites work, they love to time things by eclipses, so maybe we can anticipate some big political events around this time. And notice this. See, Uranus at 28 degrees of Aries is forming a T-square with this full moon, and it's pretty close, just a couple of less than 2 degrees away. Well, actually just a little bit more than 2 degrees away, excuse me. So the Uranus T-square, the full moon, brings a cutting away of radical elements of society, because Uranus represents radical people in society. And this T-square really puts a lot of pressure on them. They're the ones who are the most going to feel their creative reflection in the mirror. And it's going to be really hard on them, because it's always toughest for the planet that's getting the 2 squares on the T-square. That's where all the pressure builds. So elements of Uranus are locked out, repressed, and face judgment. Those would be the ones that are too radical to see their own reflection in the mirror and see the truth of what it is. And it's Sun in Aquarius squaring Uranus. Wow, so someone is kicked out of the club, kicked out of the social circle, because it's Uranus squaring a planet in its ruling sign. Now, remember last year when I was talking about John McCain and his transit, Uranus, when it was in Taurus, squaring his moon in Aquarius. And I said, you know, the Maverick, which is that Aquarian archetype, died at that time. And I think it had a lot to do with that Uranus squaring a planet in Aquarius. So here we get that. So this is really intense. Some radical elements of society are really being put under a lot of pressure and probably kicked out. That's what this full moon says. And like I said, I think it's pretty strong for the USA. Okay, and the Mars square Saturn aspect. Now this is going to be happening the next day on the 21st, but it's happening early in the morning. And, okay, you can see it here. It's going to be 13 degrees of Aries to 13 degrees of Capricorn. So this aspect is going to make a T-square with the USA's natal sun. So let's jump over to the USA's chart at the full moon on January the 20th. And you'll see that Mars square Saturn aspect, 13 degrees of Aries to 13 degrees of Capricorn. It's still quite close enough to the Sun at 12, almost 13 degrees of Cancer. So with this, we're getting Mars square the Sun, and I've already talked about Saturn opposition Sun happening at this time, and all of the effects that that's doing, all of the judgment that that's bringing, and hardships as well. So with this aspect, set of aspects I should say, authority gets really tough and attends to its responsibilities immediately. And that's because the Mars square Saturn is you approach your responsibilities with aggression. You meet life's hardships with aggression. You confront your responsibilities and your fears and your insecurities head on. It's very courageous. And the fact that the USA's sun is all locked up in this, this is very close to the full moon. It's just happening 6-7 hours later. So this is another indicator that authority is about to get really aggressive and take action in the USA. In summary, this supermoon with the lunar eclipse gives a good indication that big events in the takedown of the deep state are happening this month. Okay, so that's all for the aspects this month, but I did want to bring up a couple more subjects like France. I haven't talked about the yellow vest movement, the Gilets jaunes, as they say. It's really quite an incredible turn of events. If you're not up to date on what's happening in France, because of course they're not mentioning it in the mainstream media, please check out some videos here on YouTube. They're very educational. Now I have here the chart of France, born the 6th of October 1958, the Fifth Republic, and transits for January the 18th. And you'll notice they've got Moon in the 4th house at 20 degrees of Cancer, closely squaring their ascendant at 20 degrees of Aries. So they're very sensitive about their culture. And what they're going through these days is Pluto opposition Moon. Pluto currently at 21 degrees. Capricorn has just finished opposing their Moon. And that has been so instrumental in this Gilets jaunes movement, the yellow vest. And the first two passes were in March and May of this year. The third pass was this month. Well, excuse me, there's two more passes later this year, August 25th and November the 11th. So this is a very long pass. It's still going on. It's what's creating all of this cultural upheaval. Desire to preserve the culture, nationalism, what everyone predicted Pluto in Capricorn would bring. All of this is very consistent with these Pluto transits. And recently, Saturn in Capricorn squared their Sun and about to square their Mercury. And this is bringing things to a slowdown in France. Going through a lot of reflection. Energy is low. Politics slows to a crawl. And authority is kind of weak and unsure, lacks confidence. Any assertive move they try to make only seems to make it worse. And this is what I wanted to point out, though. This is what's kind of interesting is this month on the 18th, Jupiter trine Uranus. And this is just going to be the first pass. You'll see the Jupiter is going to be at 15 degrees of Sagittarius, trining their natal Uranus at 15 degrees of Leo. And this is the first two passes. The next two passes are going to be July and September. So Jupiter trine Uranus, very inspirational, and definitely it will encourage the yellow vest movement, and it will make it grow, because that's all revolutionary activity, and that's all Uranus. And the Jupiter trine says more, it pumps it up, gives it a lot of inspiration. It encourages the formation of progressive groups and alliances. So look for this aspect to help the yellow vest movement continue, starting with events in France this week. But don't look to the mainstream media to cover the story. Just a couple more things I wanted to point out this week, starting with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She's the Supreme Court Justice who didn't show up for arguments for the first time in her career on the court, and the alternative media says she's really ill, close to death, or possibly dead already. Well, you know, Jupiter square Neptune is a time of endings and should coincide with some major deaths. Hers could be one of them. And on January the 21st, she's getting Pluto opposition Pluto. You see that 21-19 degrees of Capricorn to 21-19 degrees of Cancer. Wow, we don't see those too often, do we? Pluto opposition Pluto. So that's a really big transit. Certainly a once-in-a-lifetime transit. Most of us never get that one. It certainly could bring powerful forces against her. And on the end of the month, she gets Jupiter squared Jupiter as well. And, you know, that's not normally a bad transit, but for someone like her, you know, since she is a judge, it could bring some problems. And who knows, maybe she's getting Neptune trine her moon. We don't have a right birth time, but considering all the hate she's got locked up in her right now, it seems like this kind of situation could bring a lot of release, you know. I don't think it looks too good for her. So I just thought I would bring it up and just show you all what transit she's getting with Pluto opposition Pluto, because we don't see that too often. And another thing I wanted to point out is last week at the aspect Mercury squaring Mars, Mercury squaring Mars, 5 degrees of Capricorn to 5 degrees of Aries, I talked about how there'd be political fights on that day. I probably should have pointed out that Trump's Neptune is at 5 degrees of Libra, and that was the day that he addressed the nation, and he talked all about MAGA. And that's another thing I wanted to point out is MAGA. His phrase is all of making America great again. That's all about reclaiming lost elements of self. So his Neptune was really activated. And that's really where that phrase comes from, that Neptune is sure. He's got a Mercury squaring Neptune natally. So he's getting Mercury squaring Neptune by transit along with the Mars opposition Neptune. And it really activated his MAGA message, and that's when he got on television and made his big speech. So I thought that was another interesting coincidence to point out. So that's all this week for weekly astrology notes. And let you know I am a practicing astrologer. If you're interested in getting a reading from me, please contact me at mobilestar7@yahoo.com or through my weblog or my website. I'll leave links in the description. And I'm doing phone consultations an hour for $35. It's working out really well. So please give me a call or write me an email, contact me, and let me run your chart. So once again, thanks for viewing. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And please hit the like button. I really appreciate it. And thanks for sharing my videos. Have a great week and enjoy that incredible full moon. Many blessings, and be good to yourself.